Welcome back to my channel, everyone. To be honest, I've been sitting here for at least 15 minutes, just sitting here. This is going to be my least favorite video, and it's not because I don't want to make it. It's because I don't know how I'll react, honestly. It'll be 4 years in May that I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I'm reminded of it every single day, all day. The problem is I don't have to go back to the beginning very often, and there's a lot you forget. Even when I hold paint night, I tell everyone my diagnosis, a quick little recap of what I've gone through so that they understand, a little bit of my journey. But I don't have to go back to the beginning of those raw thoughts and emotions, and I don't know how I'll react. So I'm gonna try not to cry. It's not a good look for me. So we'll see. I think if anyone takes anything away from this, it's to always trust what your body's telling you. If I just would have listened to myself, I might have had a very different last few years, which is really irritating. So if something doesn't feel right or look right, or it's just different, you need to be in tune with that, because it's probably not right. And I'm not saying this to scare people, but I had some pretty weird things happening for a while that I just thought it had to do with something else. So I didn't really think twice about it. If I had looked into it even a little, I would have understood that it was probably a much more serious issue than I had originally thought. Now, I'm not saying like every weird sensation you feel, go on WebMD and make yourself crazy, because it's always going to say you have some rare disease, but just be in tune with yourself. I guess my story kind of happened a little different. Not different, but there were a couple different parts to it. I had gone to my OBGYN for a normal visit, and I know I go every year, and I know that I had gone like late 2014, if not maybe in the summer. I can't pinpoint the exact time, but everything was fine. Then a few months later, I went for a skin check with my dermatologist, which I have every 6 months. I've had well over 20, if not 30, precancerous moles or lesions removed and sent for pathology. So I love my new dermatologist. She's absolutely amazing. The first one I went to was horrendous. And it's not a very comfortable feeling. Like, you go in and they literally check you from head to toe to look at any sort of moles or marks or, differences in your skin. And they get pretty up close and personal. Like, the first one I had gone to, her office was freezing. You literally had to take all of your clothes off, like panties, bra, everything came off. And then when she would check your back, you'd have to stand there with this thin paper robe on, move it to the front, and then like bend over. It was like you were being put in jail. It was just a weird, uncomfortable thing. So my new one, she's wonderful. She also does procedures a little different. Instead of just sending me to a plastic surgeon to have a mole physically excised and stitched and then sent to pathology, She does things a little bit less invasively, which I like. So I had gone in like normal. She had gone through everything, and she allows you to keep your undergarments on. So I had noticed on the side of my right breast, I had a very small, like if you were to take a Sharpie and tap it on your skin, that's the size of it. It was very small. But it was black, like as black as my shirt, not a normal color for a mole. So because she didn't like pull that side down, I had brought it up to her. And I'm always pretty in tune with like what my skin looks like and what's new and if anything's changing, just because I've been going to appointments for probably 12 years now. So she had said, I think it's okay, but I don't like the color of it. So we'll take it off, send it to pathology, and see what they say. So she did. And the way that she does it initially is she injects it with lidocaine to numb it, and then takes just a razor, not like a scalpel, but just like a razor blade, it looks like, and she just scrapes the top of the skin and then sends that in, puts a Band-Aid on, you're good to go. So a week later I hear from her. She said it was totally fine, no atypical or abnormal cells. So that was fine. Now this is where I have a hard time remembering exactly when I started to feel these symptoms, but a couple months later, I had noticed, and I always noticed it more at night than during the day, and probably because I work all day long, I'm thinking of 100 different things. At night, I'm just relaxing. So I had realized that in my right breast, I would get sharp shooting pains, like under my nipple almost, and it would like to the point where I would like cringe a little bit because it was that sharp and like sudden. So there's other parts. My right nipple inverted, which I have never had surgery on my breast at that point. I had never had kids. I never breastfed, and I wasn't born like that. And then I would also have like an itching sensation, but it wasn't my skin, it was like within, and you couldn't scratch it, like there was no satisfying the itch, and I would like literally like take my knuckle and like dig it into my chest, and it was just uncomfortable. And I thought, not super smart of me, but I had thought that because I had just had a minor little procedure done, maybe when she put the needle in to put the lidocaine in, it hit a nerve, and that caused my nipple to invert. And it's not like nothing had happened there, so I just thought that that's what it was from. So in May, it was May 19th, it was a Tuesday, I worked for Wester Auto Group, which is a huge dealership in Buffalo, New York, and I worked at one of the Nissan stores. So on Tuesdays, I had always gone in late. I worked 1 to 9, and in the morning, I just did stuff around the house. I would do laundry, dishes, just little things that I could get done before I had to go in. So I've always had a small chest. I've been full A, very small B. Always wore the attic cup, push-up cup, double cup, anything to make me look like I had a bigger chest. I had always wanted bigger boobs. We just are not blessed with that in our family. So in the morning, I would just have a t-shirt and shorts or comfy pants on while I was putzing around the house. And I specifically remember I had my Duval College t-shirt on, and which is like one of my favorite comfy t-shirts. And I had run my closets upstairs. So I started the shower, getting ready to get ready for work. I I ran upstairs to go get clothes. And I have no idea why I did this. I did not have a bra on, because who puts a bra on if they're just putzing around the house? Nobody actually likes wearing them, at least I didn't. But I ran up the stairs and I had held my chest. Not like they were going to hit me in the face. I mean, again, I don't know why I did it. But when I felt right under my pointer finger, I had felt a lump. And it was hard. And now, you know, of course, immediately you go to the worst. But I was trying not to do that. And I'm like, there's no way. I'm 29 years old. Like, I'm perfectly healthy. There's nothing wrong with me. I take care of myself. But then I'm thinking all of these other symptoms I've been feeling. And then I'm like, well, what if? So then I go downstairs. And again, I am 5'6". At that time, I was probably 115, 118 pounds. Not, again, big chested. So I wanted to see if I could see this lump, like, superficially. So before I had gotten in the shower, I had tried to look, and I couldn't really see anything, but I could feel it. Then I realized, like, my nipple was hard as a rock. So then I start feeling my left side, and I feel nothing. Under the nipple feels totally different. So now I'm getting a little nervous. So I immediately called my OBGYN, because that's just who I thought to call. And I had been off. Wednesday was my day off during the week. So they had been able to fit me in, which was perfect, because I honestly didn't know if I could have waited another day. So I get there the next day, and, well, first, when I had gone to work, I, was really close with the girls that I had worked with. And they're like, don't get all worked up. It's probably just a cyst, like, that's super common for a lot of women. And I'm like, I know. I just try not to think that way. It's just everyone who has died in my family just about has died of cancer. So it's one of those things I kind of always knew that I would get. It was just when. So I got through the day. I had talked to Eric about it a little bit when I had gotten home, and just kind of decided not to get myself super worked up until I actually saw the doctor, because what's the point? So I go see him the next day, and it was probably 10, 11 o'clock for the appointment, and I check in, and he does a breast exam, and I'm watching his face the whole time, and like, you just know. He was concerned. So he called an imaging place not too far from there and where I live. So he said, they don't have an appointment. You just need to go there and sit, and then they'll take you when they can. So that's what I did. Sorry. I called Eric on the way, and I called my mom, because something happens, you call your mom. But I didn't want her to get all worked up. So, of course, she's like, I'll meet you, I'll leave work and I'll come there. And I'm like, no, I don't want you to do that, because then I'll get upset. Just let me get through this, and I'll call you when I'm done. So I go in, and, they ask, have you ever had a mammogram before? I'm like, no, I'm 29. Like, insurance doesn't even cover it till you're 40, which is crazy to me now that I think about it. So I go in, and they do a mammogram, and the woman was awesome. She kept apologizing. She's like, I know, this isn't pleasant, which I honestly didn't really think it was that bad. And then they did an ultrasound as well. And then they put you in this little room. And they give you all of your scans like in a big envelope, like an x-ray, like the old, things you put up to the window or a light and look at. The films. And then the doctor comes in and sits with you. Not super personable, which was fine, but he told me that basically I needed to go see an oncologist for further testing. And then when I left, and I don't know why this pissed me off as much as it did, when you have a mammogram, they give you a pink carnation, like flower. Why would you give someone who had just had a not great experience like this pink flower? Maybe it's stupid, but I still get aggravated by it. It's not like everything was good and, congratulations for doing the things you're supposed to. Like, I shouldn't have been here for another 11 years. It didn't sit with me very well. So I call my mom, I talk to Eric, I get home, and I called my OB again, and he had wanted me to see a friend of his who is a breast oncologist in this area, and he had like a 6-week waiting period. And I'm like, there's no way I can wait 6 weeks. How am I supposed to function as a person, knowing this? I'm not going to be able to do anything. I couldn't even fathom the thought of having to wait a day, let alone 6 weeks. So I said, we have Roswell Park Cancer Institute right in Buffalo. I'm like, why would I not just go there? That's all they do. That's the whole hospital. It's just cancer. Every type of cancer. No heart attack, no stroke, no nothing. Just cancer. I'm like, why would I not just go there? And he's like, no, that's great. Well, I'll make a call. So I go home, talk to Eric, talk to my mom, and now I start to research. Because that's normally what I do anyways. The first thing I put in was nipple inversion. If you are not born that way, breastfed, had a baby, had surgery, the first thing that popped up was breast cancer. And now I'm just pissed at myself, because if I would have just done what I normally did for everything, I could have known about this months before. But I didn't. So it is what it is. Now the worst part is, that Thursday, the next day, I have to be at work at 7 a.m. for a State of the Union meeting, which is a meeting of every department, all of the owners, all of the directors, all of the managers for the whole dealership. Parts, service, sales, finance, which I was in, body shop, billing, titles, everyone was there. And in my store, we actually had a body shop, so there was probably 100 people at this meeting that I had to present to. What we had done and accomplished in 2014, and then what we were going to do in the new year. Knowing everything I had just gone through the last 2 days. I didn't call in. I went in, got all dressed up, put my big girl face on, and presented. All morning I thought I was going to throw up just from my nerves. I don't know how I got through it. Everyone said what a great job we did, and I'm just thinking, I need to go home. I can't even function right now. So my GM I couldn't find, so I had walked upstairs to see if he was up in his office, and there were still a ton of people there. Everyone was eating breakfast, and so I'm walking up the stairwell, and I tell him I found him there, and I said, I know today's super busy, but when you get a second, I have to talk to you, which is not a normal thing for me to say to him. So he's like, is everything okay? And I just start sobbing in the stairwell. So we go upstairs, and we went into the break room, and he closes the door, and I had told him, like, I think I'm going to be diagnosed with breast cancer. Which is the first time I actually said it. And all he did was hug me. And that's not him. Like, at all. He's a tough person. And then he said, obviously, go home. And I said, I have to try to get into Roswell. He said, just go home and let me know what's going on. So, sorry, my nose is so itchy. I went back downstairs into my office, and the director of finance was down there, and he's a couple years younger than me, and we got along really well. And I had told him, obviously you could say I was upset, and I told him, the same thing, and he had asked, did you talk to Scott? Now, Scott Beeler is the president and owner of that auto group. He's one of the most amazing people you'd ever meet. He has a huge part with this cancer hospital. Has donated so much money that his name is on the brand new state-of-the-art building. It is the Scott Beeler Clinical Sciences Center. And I said, I couldn't catch him. He had left before I could, and he had said, would you mind if I tell him and I talk to him? And I'm like, no, that's fine. And their executive office was right next door to us. So he's like, go home. He goes, I'll go talk to him and I'll call you later. Now it was like a 40 minute ride home. And I didn't say anything to anyone else. And when I was driving home, I had just gotten on the thruway, so it was probably 10 minutes into the drive, and Scott's assistant had called me, and of course she said, we're so sorry, whatever we can do, like the normal phone call. And she had said, Scott is going to place a phone call on your behalf to Roswell to see if we can get you in there. So I thank her. We get off the phone. I call Eric. I call my mom. And I was probably 5 minutes from my house, and an unknown number had popped up, which my sister works at this cancer hospital. She does HR there. So I was used to when she called, like, that would pop up. So I didn't know if it was her. I just assumed it was. So I answered, and it was a nurse from Roswell, from the breast clinic. And she had said, we had just had a phone call on your behalf that, you think you might have breast cancer. You have found a lump. And, it was like probably just about 9 o'clock. And she had said, can you be here by 10? I said, absolutely. So I went home. Well, I called Eric, called my mom and told him. My mom, of course, was like, I'll leave work and I'll just meet you there. And Eric actually worked only 5 miles down the road at one of the other dealerships there. So I had told him, and he's like, well, obviously I'll go with you. So I went home. I was all dressed up. So I went home, changed, let the dogs out. And then I drove down to his store. And got into the passenger side. And he came out of the building. His face was red. And you can obviously tell he had been crying and was still crying when he got in the car, which is not like him. He's the strongest man you'd ever meet, which just broke my heart. Oh, I am a mess. So, the hospital's about 30 minutes from us, and it was the longest ride I had ever been on. So, he knows I'm sad. Hi, puppies. I think Mr. Beefy is going to make an appearance in every video. I guess if you learn nothing else from anything I've said, hi, puppies, just listen to your body. Listen to what it's telling you, because it can make a huge difference in everything. It's so funny. So, this is obviously a big, it's been a 4-year process for me. And if I just did everything in one video, it would be hours long. So I want to break everything up to, the first week or two of all the tests I've gone through and all of that. But then, break up. So do like the first couple weeks, and then my diagnosis, the plan of attack that we chose, and kind of go from there, because otherwise it'll just be hours long. So I hope this helps someone. I'm sorry I'm such a mess. I reacted exactly the way I didn't want to. But it's hard to kind of revisit all that. So thank you for watching, and I hope you tune into the next one. Thanks, guys.